Hi, welcome to Better Tattooing. Today we're going to be talking about Bang Bang and Hyperskin's Magic Ink. This will be fun. Okay, now that that's over with, it's 5 o'clock in the morning and people are still talking about this. Now, first thing I got to say to Bang Bang is, you know what? Good job, dude. This is good marketing. Good marketing. You know, we see a product that comes out that's new that gets this much traction this quickly. It's brilliant. It's brilliant marketing. And coming from a guy who, tattoos superstars, I think this is pretty interesting. Now, saying that you tattoo, musicians doesn't mean that you actually know what's going on with the tattoo, the science. And I got to say, when I first seen this stuff, it was pretty interesting because I thought that, this magic 3DI stuff or, fading ink or whatever, coming and going it's a novel thing, right? I figured that people, as soon as they would see some of these videos, they would start to jump onto this, right? It's like the idea that you can get something and then just throw it away or move it away or do something else because, job, profession, religion, something else that may be impeding your choices about what you can and can't get. It's interesting, right? Now, I have some issues with this right off the hop. And so the first one is that the videos that we're seeing of, people getting these, it's a very specific skin tone that we're seeing right off the hop with each one of these. So the first question I would have about efficacy and safety on this stuff is going to be what skin tones can this work on? The premise behind Magic Ink is that, with light, you can activate or deactivate the pigment, showing it to, or expand or do something else. I don't know. This whole thing, I'm watching the video while we're doing this, and it's just kind of silly. This is a reaction video or something. I don't like it personally. I think that the way that they have everything lit up and the fact that they're using all of this, black gloves, black lights, black clothing, with a offset background is to give it that look that it's maybe a little bit more warm than it actually is. They're increasing contrast in the image to make it more appealing. It's just like what people do when they take their photos on Instagram and, dump contrast values. We see some very, very washed out tattoos next to something that, if it's being applied correctly, should probably look a little bit more dense. But even past application, let's just take a peek at some of this stuff. So Magic Ink was initially developed by a company called Hyperskin, some PhD researcher out of Colorado who started this stuff. And it's an interesting, patentable, I don't know, I guess startup type thing, where the biotech is always like a trigger when you get into these startups where people have invented something that is supposed to be groundbreaking and earth shattering. And, I remember seeing a video about this guy and he said on the news that one of the uses that you can have for this stuff is in dermatology, you can inject sunscreen into people and it'll just stay there. So you can have permanent sun protection, which that's interesting to me. But who's going to sit through getting their entire body tattooed? So you can have sun protection. That's one. And then two is I don't even know what this stuff is made of. We're going to be going through this together. They got safety, science. Let's check out the safety tab here. Safety first, global compliance, all about aftercare. So let's go first into aftercare. Okay, what's their aftercare for this product? Proper aftercare is critical to optimize the healing and aesthetic outcome of a new tattoo. Yes. This is written by AI. These essential steps ensure longevity and vibrant appearance of any tattoo. Yeah, this is literally written with AI. The fact that you can tell is just the structure of the paragraph that's there, and how it has like a very specific closing at the end where they have a lot of descriptors that's in there. It's not even trained AI. This is like ChatGPT basic. Aftercare instructions. Leave the bandage covering the tattoo, remove the bandage. Following morning, clean your tattoo thoroughly with soap and water. It doesn't say what type of soap. Rather than simply allowing the water. So rub any serum plasma off the tattoo to breathe and helps prevent infection. Having the skin breathe doesn't actually help prevent infection. The action of rubbing and creating friction on top of the tattoo or wound area in general is actually what helps prevent infection, because bacteria's inside the skin, on the skin, etc. If they're whatever type, they can build up these things called biofilms on top of your skin. And so if you're like rubbing your hand over top of it, it ends up breaking down these biofilms, which then allows the detergents, anything else that you have going onto the skin, actually to come in when you have water and wash them away. So there's a first one from evidently Dr. Ardash, who's, I don't know. I don't know. If you're actually like a dermatologist or something, you would know that that's probably the first thing. It's maybe a bit wrong. All right. So next one here, preferably one should use an antibacterial soap. So we already know that antibacterial soap is overkill for small wounds like this. Antibacterial soap ends up destroying or like nuking the microbiome on top of the skin, because it looks like a tree, doesn't it? Oh, like little fucking things flying off of it here. By causing the death of anything that's on top of the skin, up to 99.9% of it, right? And a lot of the bacteria that we see on top of the skin, we actually require, like it's part of our health. That's the microbiome. So getting rid of all of it actually increases the chances of, bad things. If we have like, a bad thing, and it's living on the outside of the skin, and it can survive this antibacterial soap and all of the other little things that used to keep it in, in its space, like holding it off because they got like little guns or something, and they're keeping it at bay. If all of them have been wiped out, it's easier for that, bad thing to end up getting into our body. So this is the first red flag for me. It's a bad thing. And I always like looking at people's aftercare, because there's certain trigger words that I look for. And if you see them, automatically I kind of know, like, I don't even care if you have an MD in front of your name. You don't know about wound care. Wound care is a very specific subspecialty of like medicine in general, and not a lot of people are into it. So let's see if they have a couple here. Anyways, we get past antibacterial soap, first red flag. So this is the bad stuff. Bad about it. Antibacterial material. All right, avoid any clothing rubbing over the tattoo as much as possible during the first several days of the tattooing. So another one, this is just like opaque language, which is, confusing to me in and of itself. What is several days? Is this going to be based on how rough the tattooer is doing it? Is this because of the pigment? Is this because of what? Like, why is the justification that you have to avoid any clothing rubbing all over the tattoo? Realistically, what we should have instead of that is loose-fitting clothing. Loose-fitting, breathable clothing, because you still want some protection from the elements in the environment. If you're living in extreme cold, extreme, like dry, if there's lots of sun, if there's something else, your clothing is going to create a barrier to where that is going to reduce the chances of the environment affecting this fresh wound. So that's wrong. Number 4, change or wash bedding and towels daily to avoid inadvertent bacterial exposure. That isn't necessary unless you have an open and weeping wound. So usually, like for number 4, if you change your bedding, we try to do that on the first day, because the tattoo wound on the first day is is fresh, right? The scabbing that is going to occur even in microspaces inside of your skin, if it's going to be very small or not, hasn't really established itself. And until those scabs are set, you're not going to have like a good protection from your environment. And if you have things like pets or whatever, cats where you have like, little poo feet that are walking all over your stuff, and you decide to get into that bed, you're exposing yourself to a lot of just dangerous potential pathogens because you have an open wound. But usually by 24 to 48 hours out, if you have taken care of your wound effectively and correctly, it will close up enough and you don't really have to worry too much about this. Past the fact that like this seems like a big reach to me. If you need to change your bedding every single day, is this in a hospital setting? Like, where are they getting their exposure control from? Like, where are they thinking that this is going? It seems like it's a bit of a mix between a hospital setting and something that you would do at home. And it seems like it's another space for them to possibly come at a client and say, well, did you change your bedding every day? No, well, that's part of the aftercare. I'm sorry that the tattoo didn't turn out well. It's a fail-safe for them to protect themselves, which is terrifying. So for the first 2 to 3 days after the tattoo placement, apply Bactine and Aquaphor as follows. If your tattoo has been cleaned, apply a thin layer of Bactine over the tattoo. Okay, why? Bactine is nothing. It's nothing. So you put on sunburns. Why do you put it on a tattoo? It's not the same wound. It's insane. Once the Bactine is dried, apply a thin layer of Aquaphor. So we're going to be introducing a harsh alcohol-based pain-fighting numbing agent to your skin, and then we are going to seal it in with a mineral oil and white petroleum-based product, which, I mean, depending on where you live, Aquaphor can be fine, but I mean, realistically, would you put Aquaphor on a cat scratch? Like 2 to 3 times per day, would you put Aquaphor on a cat scratch? No. Oh, well, why would you put it on a tattoo wound? If we look at like a tattoo versus a cat scratch, we go to our little skin model here. A cat scratch, when it comes in, it goes very, very far down into the skin. It causes bleeding. It's introducing a ton of little bacteria and stuff into it. It's very, very, very dirty. Now, this wound could be deemed as something severe, right? Now, tattoo with aseptic practices being practiced by the tattooer and using good technique, I mean, that's only just kind of damaging the upper layers of your skin. If you don't see blood and there's only just a little bit of swelling, there's barely any exudate, this is less than, right, what you would experience with a cat scratch. So, and I think, if we were to take a cat scratch and we were to put Aquaphor on it 3 times a day, after a bit of time, your skin is going to end up getting really, really, really funky. And it's just going to take longer for that tattoo to heal. So don't do that. That's bad. Repeat the process of cleaning and applying Bactine 2 to 3 times per day for the first 3 days. Okay, so this is for infection control. They want you to really make sure that there is nothing living on the outside of your skin that could potentially cause an infection. And in most cases, this isn't really required as long as the tattoo artist has done what they're supposed to do correctly and not really messed up your skin. But if you have had, a poor application, and there is additional trauma to your skin, you may need to do something like this. But I mean, I've only seen skin chewed up that way by the people who are tattooing out of the house that have no experience whatsoever. The final little thing here is, should any adverse events occur, immediately consult a board certified dermatologist for further instruction. So to get a referral to a board certified dermatologist takes time. So if you're suffering from any type of major health consequences, just be prepared to wait 3 to 6 months to get in touch with somebody who has no understanding about these products that are being applied to your skin, because what they're going to end up doing is they're going to look at it and they're going to go, uh-oh, that's not good. And then they're going to take this thing called the Dermatome Shaver, which kind of looks like a kitchen device. Those ones that you can make like julienne fries on? They take that and they strap it to your arm, and there's this little thing that comes across the top, and it's got a blade on it. moves across, and it shaves off your skin. And they'll do that as deep as they need to make sure that they're getting all of the tattoo out of your skin, which is terrifying. And it leads to a whole host of issues, complications, potential infections, et cetera, et cetera. But they have the use of that tool, and they have, what else? Malpractice insurance. So they can, make a mistake and you can sue them and get away with it. That's fine. Mudgill dermatology. Okay, well, maybe we'll look that up later. Anyway, so first pull on this, just when we get into the safety about their aftercare. Their aftercare is garbage. And most of this stuff was written with AI. Was it the first several days of healing? The body expels many of these foreign ink particles as possible through the epidermis. No, that's not quite right. Clients may observe pigment leaking out of their skin for several days. Yes, if you've oversaturated a tattoo, you will see some leaking occurring, right? So that's when we have our skin model again. We've put so much ink into this area, and there's so much swelling, right? Because there's so much trauma that's going on. As the body starts to calm down and all of this stuff starts to thin out, because we've damaged the skin here with all of these needle strikes, and there's so many holes throughout the protective aspects of this, your body is going to try to push some of this out, because that's just the natural part of remodeling. But to see it leak out for days is scary. And now we could say this is one of two things. One, the skin is so chewed up that the pigment's leaking out because there's nothing to hold it in. It's just basically like taking a plastic bag and poking a bunch of holes into it so that nothing can be held into it. So that's one. Or two, your aftercare from constantly scrubbing it and putting on an oil-based moisturizer is actually opening up all your pores and opening up your skin and causing it to have too much moisture behind it, so that your body is having to try and push additional fluids to the area, increasing the inflammation of the space, and then causing that to further migrate out, which is terrifying. So so everything right now is bad. Let's just go back to our safety stuff here. Let's see their safety first. Let's go through this. Hyperskin is built on safety. The foundational material in all of our nanotechnologies is polymethyl methacrylate, medical grade polymer, which has been safely used in medicine for 70 years in dermal fillers, replacement hips, bone cement, and more. So here we go. PMMA. The majority of the data that comes from this stuff about its health and safety is from dentistry. So when we think about is dentistry equivalent to tattooing, no. This is kind of like saying, driving a truck is the same as flying a spaceship. Yes, they're both modes of travel, as in like both of these things are happening in the body, but they're not the same. The science behind them is totally different. PMMAs are also known as plexiglass, like a construction material. And plexiglass is great, right? Because it's not glass, it's a plastic. But what we do know is that plexiglass and PMMAs are UV sensitive materials, which means that when we have all of our plastic molecules here and we have a sun, right, that ends up shining down on it, the UVB, UVA rays specifically will end up weakening the structures over time, causing them to become more brittle, and then they dissolve. So when they dissolve, the byproducts of whatever that breakdown is, if it's in your body, that means that these particles are going to go into your body, especially if you have healed skin there, right? There's not going to be a space for it to come back out. Your epidermis is great at keeping things in, right? Like it keeps in heat, it keeps in moisture. It does a lot of stuff. And these small, which they said they're 200 nanometers specifically, which I have an issue with that, this stuff is not going to just come out. In fact, it's more likely to sink down given the size of it, which is terrifying in and of itself. So while, yes, this in dentistry may make a lot of sense, PMMAs in dentistry don't see a lot of sun because who walks around with their teeth full-time showing? No one walks around like that because you get dry mouth. And you just don't have a lot. And I mean, past that, your mouth and your, is not the same as the skin on your forearm. Structurally, operationally, like it's a super moist environment where your skin, if your skin was as, your forearm was as wet as your mouth, 24/7, it would just slough off, right? So we've got some issues with that already. The way that they created this is pretty neat, though, by having these polymethyl methacrylate particles really, really small, and then spinning them in, some centrifuge and adding some chemicals to it. What they're able to do is, if we blow one up, they're able to insert something called a chromophore. A chromophore is something that, like, if sunlight hits it, it ends up creating color, right? And so they're able to, like, insert a dye, which a dye is not permanent, right? Pigments are. Dyes are water-based soluble stuff, and that's why they have to suspend it in a piece of plastic, is because if it's in this, it's protecting these inks, right? This dye from anything coming into contact with it and dispersing it. So while it's in there, it's safe. But if we have the sunlight coming in and it ends up, fracturing and cracking this, there's a space for the chromophore to leak out, or this dye to leak out, making it so that all you're left with is this partially degraded PMMA in your skin. And while it has been shown to be relatively safe given specific applications, there is, as far as I have seen on the NIH database, no data showing it for use in tattooing, with spaces on the body that may see constant sun exposure, and showing it to be safe or efficacious. Let's keep looking through this. Our innovative intradermal technologies provide precise particle size, prevents ink migration, lowering potential health risks. So they don't say it eliminates potential health risks. They say it lowers it, which is interesting, right? If we have a lower risk, we have to ask, if it's lower risk, we got to ask why. Why is it a lower risk? So there's an assumption here that based on the size of the particles, that they're going to be less likely to migrate into the skin. There's been some anecdotal evidence and some preliminary trials showing the size of a particle will influence how quickly it drifts through the skin. So we have something that is, sub 10 nanometers in comparison with something that is 200 nanometers. The idea is that the smaller particle will drift further into the skin faster, while the larger one will go slower. So it's going to have less potential health risks because of that. Now, this is just saying because of drift. It's not actually talking about the particles. I mean, if we were to pull into this, the potential health risks should be mitigated because we've made a bigger particle. If they wanted to make it truly bigger, they would have this probably sitting at, somewhere between, let's say, 300 to 500 nanometers in size, which is still exceptionally small and can, be used in tattooing. Why did they choose that specific size? Well, they did it because trying to attach a chromophore inside of a piece of plexiglass can only be done at certain sizes. And this is probably where their risk management is going to come in, is they're going to say, well, we can gauge by how lustrous that the pigment is in a bottle, right? We'll be able to say, okay, well, if this looks like, visually, red, if this looks like red, and we see that this is the same as a bottle that's next to it, right, or our color tester sample, and these look like they're equivalent, we're pretty sure that all of the particles in there are going to be that size. But as to date, there is no way for them to actually test to make sure that what's in a bottle is all going to be that same size. They can't. I mean, they could create a screening and filtering mechanism that's going to allow all of the particles underneath one size to be filtered through. So they put it through like a screen, right? With, 200 nanometer size holes. They'll push it through. So anything 200 and below is going to end up on one side. And then they end up pushing it back through with something that's 199 nanometers in size. And then they'll end up having something else go through. So all that you're left is with 200 nanometer size particles. Well, the majority of them would be. It's not 100% perfect to do that. It has to be done multiple times to try and reduce any of the residuals that are caught in between or attached or aggregated together. And that is extremely expensive. And it's not done in tattooing or in anything right now just because it's cost prohibitive. If they were to do the filtering stuff, it would take, I mean, thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars to implement the technology. And that would cause an increase in price that may exclude most people from using it. So, anyways, on to the next bit here. Design for humans. It's important to know that not all tattoo inks are created equal, and some may contain harmful ingredients or heavy metals that can increase the risk of health or of health complications. Many tattoo pigments are originally designed for industrial uses. Now, this is ploy, right? So tattoo inks were not created or designed for industrial uses. The raw pigments were. And that's kind of conflating things right there. I don't like that language. I think that it takes away from things and makes it seem like the pigments that we use are known to be unsafe. Now, are they unsafe? Yes. Are they unsafe to everyone? Maybe. Are they unsafe enough that we have to be worried? Probably not. Nah, probably not. And that's because we have a cohort of, billions of people who've been tattooed. If this stuff was really, really bad, we would hear about it from everyone, right? So this is without data, of course, but we make the assumption that it's safe because, every person that you tattoo doesn't come back with something that's, messed up. What we do know is about this hyperpigment stuff is it's not tested. I mean, it is tested, right? But not as thoroughly as tattoo pigments that are currently commercially available. So we'll go back to the next sentence here. With its use of PMMA and other medical grade materials, well, what materials, right? What materials are they talking about? I don't even want to finish this. It's fine. Our ink is engineered with the safest and purest ingredients available. So this is an issue I have as well. So the safest, we don't know, right? It's not safest. We don't have any type of protocols that they have where they're like, here's our white paper. This is how we do our process. This is how we do whatever. And they won't do it because it's a trade secret. So they don't have to release it to anyone. They don't have to let you know what they're actually using inside of this or how they manufacture it because it's proprietary information. So we take that as a blind faith, right? This is like believe in Jesus ate a croissant on the third. Like you don't know, but you kind of hope that he did because croissants are rad. But like we don't know. This is a lot of marketing gimmick bull crap right now. That's just not. It doesn't actually go to anything. It doesn't prove anything. This is hyperbolic statements. Quality control and purity. So the purity requirements that they come into this with is like, so when they're manufacturing these particles, what they have is, multiple different ingredients that end up getting mixed together. And through chemistry, they end up with something else. And so stoichiometry, as it's called, and I'm not going to try to write that out because I always misspell it, they use math. And so if you have math in between this, your assumption is that if I'm given, X product and I add it to Y product, the reaction through math is going to result in, Z product. And that Z product should be, this amount. So we'll go percent, If it doesn't come into that percentile amount at the outcome, then what we know is that there is a lower purity on the interparts, right? These origin aspects, because they didn't mix well. So there's probably something else that's in them. But without actually knowing what's going on there or the chemistry behind it, we actually can't tell what's going to be, good or not. You can't tell purity controls without massive amounts of testing that's going on after initial batches are made. And this also comes into like lot and time, so lot numbers. We could say that the purity on lot number 2 is 96%, which is great, right? But lot 3, because we got it from a new supplier, the purity may actually be 73%. Now, how many bottles of this pigment were made in each? Well, lot 2 had 12 bottles, right? Lot 3 had 126,000 bottles. So having something like this happen, especially when there isn't any type of reporting about how these things are made, can make it pretty sketchy when we're trying to figure out exactly how safe or pure something is. This is so funny. Tattoo ink biodistribution. That's a fancy word. Recent studies suggest that some tattoo ink particles migrate from the initial tattoo site to the other body, such as the liver or lymph nodes. These particles are transmitted by immune cells, and their accumulation in the organs can potentially lead to chronic inflammation or other adverse health effects. The size of these particles is usually below 200 nanometers. Now, remember, they said usually. Now, this is a trigger for me, right? Usually gives us no grade to say, like, well, within what level, within what value, like 96% of the time if they're below 200 nanometers and they enter the body. There's no data that supports any of that. It just shows that we had seen this as such. But there's also things that come into play when you're thinking about this, right? If you think about technique, all right, if we have technique and it's bad, we're going to get more migration, right? Because the skin's damaged more. There's going to be more inflammation, right? More inflammation. There's a double M there, isn't it? Equals more migration. Because the body is just in a more alert state. There's going to be more stuff going on to try and fix what's going on there, right? So this is untested, and it's not a positive signal for me that these people are doing. That what they've done is they've cherry picked some data, and there's only a couple tattoo scientists out there that are actually like testing this stuff. One of them is like Jorgen Surup, who kind of did a flip flop, and I'm a little bit disappointed with some of the things he said recently. But they've been able to like see like, oh yeah, I took a biopsy of a skin section and I put it underneath a microscope, and it showed, oh, it's bad. There's stuff that moved into a lymph node, and it was very, very small particles. So it's an assumption. They don't know how it got there. They make an assumption that because it's that particle size that it ended up there, but it has nothing to do about the person who had done the tattoo or the person who got the tattoo, what their lifestyle is like, their genetics, their background, anything. It's just a very just topical assumption on how something has occurred. So this is, while it's rooted in science, right? We're going to put like big air quotes over that because it's only rooted in some initial discoveries that have no further explanation. It's just something that says this is of interest. Perhaps we should look into it more. And that's that. Tattoos have been commonly applied to humans for thousands of years. More research is necessary to fully understand the long-term impacts of tattoo ink on the body. As always, it's recommended to consult with a medical professional before getting a tattoo or if any concerns arise following a new tattoo. And this statement is great, but how many doctors do you know that are actually trained in tattoo science? None. I spend my time talking to doctors, trying to teach them a little bit more about this stuff constantly. And while they find it novel and interesting, most doctors are going to be using hypotheticals to try and figure out, treat, or even just approach some type of problem when somebody comes in with a tattoo that's messed up. And usually what they'll do is throw antibiotics at it just in case it's, infected, air quote, which is not positive. That's, they haven't taken a biopsy of the area to really see, or even a swab to see what may be going on with it. They just throw antibiotics at it, put a pressure dressing on it, and say, go home and leave it alone. All right. Next one, optimal particle size. Hyperskin produces its PMMA particles with a standardized size and shape to prevent ink migration, as opposed to traditional ink's non-standardized particles. And we've done a video on this on the YouTube, about what is actually going on with this, but that's fine. They offer exceptional benefits for both safety and aesthetics. This is hyperbolic. They don't know. That's not real. There's no data showing that their stuff is, exceptionally beneficial for safety and aesthetics. By preventing migration, our ink stays precisely where it's applied. That's not true either. We know that, as you age, your skin changes, and the pigment inside of it moves. If you don't believe me, look at any tattoo that's 35 years old. And that's not due to the particle sizes. Like old tattoo pigment was huge. They'd take carbon and crush it up with a fucking stone. All right. So this is microbial smart packaging, professionals only. Like this is the well-trained professionals. So this is all just proprietary stuff. Like you can't get it unless you've been trained by us. So they're going to be hiding underneath this opaque business practice that only if you're a certified person who falls for the gimmick, are you going to be able to use this stuff. And they're going to teach you not only how to apply it, but also how to deal with the problems. And there's probably going to be more training, right, on this side for how to deal with negative consequences. And they'll give you just a piece of paper or a book, depending on how thorough they're going to be. That's going to lead you through, like, 1, 2, 3. Like this, these are the things that you say, and this is how you tell them to F off, right? And that make sure that we protect the company. Like we've got to make sure that we're always looking like we're angels here, because the investment is just, we got to protect it. Medical grade ingredients. Creative products using medical grade ingredients, ultra high purity, which, like, that's insane. It was well established biocompatibility. Let's see the intradermal science here. Tattoos are intradermal implants. So usually when we're starting to see stuff and we're looking at medical literature, the very first thing we want to see is how old the references are. So this is nearly a quarter of a century old. Now, one thing to know is that most tattoo pigments are less than 1,000 nanometers in diameter. That's a huge spread. And also at the same time, tattoo pigment between 2000 and 2009 underwent a huge shift, right? There was only a couple suppliers in 2000 where you could buy pigments direct from them, right? And when you got to like 2009, there was a lot of companies that had like major saturation. There was differences in the technology and how it was being produced, and it was starting to become more of a global thing. Like 2009 tattoo landscape versus 2000 is totally different. And so the pigments that were being used, even if the raw products may have been sourced from the same places, were being prepared differently. So automatically right now I'm seeing a quarter century old reference is woefully outdated. And we see, you see there, syrup, eh? This is a micrograph from Mr. Syrup, right? And the majority of work that you're going to see about tattoo science with pigments and skin and dermatology is actually going to come from this one person. So always keep that in mind there. Now, this is also, once again, this is 2011. This is 2 years after the big innovations and the large companies started to get established. It's still over 10 years old, this data. And there has been a lot of changes in the past decade. You can think about how many tattoo artists that we know that haven't been tattooing even 10 years. That's how much of a difference in the spread that this is. So keep that in mind, that the things that they're using to support this, are probably outdated, and they haven't been rigorously tested by additional people. If all of our sources are coming from a single person or a single cohort of people, which this would be, in the EU health area, it's not testing on different or varying populations around the world. This isn't like how this affects somebody, of Latino descent who lives in, an arid climate at this time of year, blah, blah, blah. This is this very specific population. This isn't universal. This doesn't include, histology samples from every skin type over a large cohort of 10,000 people. This will be like 20 people who are included in this, where they're seeing these type of issues and reactions occur, and these are the sizes of those particles, which, once again, we can go back to our, lot numbers. What lot number was this of this pigment? Was the purity on this stuff down? Was the size of the particles for this specific batch so small that it caused this reaction, and then the company shifted away from those and went to something else? It doesn't mean that it's a full picture of what's going on. During a tattoo procedure, pigment nanoparticles are deposited into the skin. This is written by AI, and it's not actually nanoparticles. Not all of them are nano-sized. Into the upper layer of the epidermis and middle layer of the dermis, which is erroneous because you can't skip all of the other layers, which is pretty funny. And this is a rewrite and a pull off of some other work, which is, it looks like, Baranska et al. Let's see what this is. Unveiling Skin Macrophage Dynamics explains both tattoo persistence and strenuous removal. And this is Special Collection 2018 Myeloid Center Skin and Health Disease. It's got a lot of people in the et al. And stop with the pop-ups. I'm just going through here. CCC McKean receptors. This is just an immunology paper. We don't have to get into it, right? So what they're looking at is a very specific introduction and application of lab done tattoos. More than likely, with any of the studies that's gone on here, they're not going to have a certified licensed tattoo artist doing it inside of a lab. They may, but they may not. I haven't read that paper, but I'll end up putting it online so we can all go over it together in the future, which I think is kind of fun. Let's just move on because I'm going to end up getting sidetracked away from Magic Ink and just talking about stupid stuff. Aussie the Iceman, 3300 BCE, 61 tattoos. Aussie tattoos are made of the same carbon material used in modern day tattoo inks. Yes, that is true, but the source of the pigment, right, is, excuse me, I just had a tea. The source is different. So modern blacks are going to be made from, oil and petroleum production, and Aussie stuff was made from burnt wood. Right, the ash soot. You're getting stuff from a fire as opposed to, something that is, made inside of a blast furnace because, we need energy or something like that. So it's different. And the reason why I say that is because the purity of certain things, if they can reach certain temperatures, especially when you're making carbon, changes a lot. Like if you can put a product, a carbon-based thing, into a crucible and you burn it at such a high level that you can separate all of the atomic structures and you end up with pure carbon, it's a lot different than, sitting in a backcountry and lighting some, cedar on fire and then just taking the ash and tattooing yourself. Anyways, tattoo inks origins. Once again, we're going back to... Oh, I see the O'Reilly for the tattoo machine's first patent, in which supposedly he stole. That's fun. This goes back to Pabst et al. 2009. So we're at that spot, right, where things are being defined again because tattooing was becoming interesting, and this device has not kept pace with other advances in technology. So there's no real science on here. When we start seeing the PMMA stuff, biomedical implants, dentistry, and prosthetics. Once again, is this going to be the same as they don't put PMMA on people to replace burned skin. So we know that that's probably not going to be compatible, right? And it's also used in fiber optics. Well, that's fun. And bulletproof windows. This implant is dope. Dopants is active ingredient, low concentration additive put in a bulk material after its properties, allowing it to change its color. Oh, golly. They tried to make stuff that's hyper complex, easily readable. Existing tattoo pigments, 20 to 200 nanometers is incorrect. I mean, even with the previous sources that are pretty outdated, they had said from 20 to 1,000 nanometers, which is different. And the purity levels from 70 to 95% is conjecture. We don't know, actually, based on lot sizes and stuff like that. Even with the JRC report, they were showing purities that were all over the place, but they had made note that it was only based on certain samples that they were able to obtain. Ingredients, hundreds of different colorants, and manufacturers derived from industrial pigments. It's derived from pigments that may be used in industrial settings. It's a big play on words here, right? This is all language meant to make you go, oh no, which is just good marketing, right? Implants scaled 20 to 200 nanometers. So that's the same now. Okay, so their stuff is, I thought it had perfect purity. It's supposed to be 200 nanometers, but now it's the same as existing tattoo pigments. Okay. So they have a better purity, 99% greater than, and designed for inception for human skin. What? It's plastic. Actually, it was made for, dental stuff. It's made for your grill. You've modified its use. Now, much like industrial pigments, they're being used for something other than what they were initially intended for. So that's fun, right? Medical grade polymer glass, which glass is not a polymer. What they're saying is plastic glass, plus a dopant. inside of this, I don't see a whole bunch of stuff. I don't see where is their clinical trials. Where's their stuff that shows, hey, we have tested this on people. Let's see if this is here. Importance results, representative testing. Oh, here we go, that Mudgill guy. Okay, and they've got Bang Bang in there. The most famous tattoo artist in the world. Dr. Carson Bruns, who's the dude who invented it. And yeah, there you go, University of Colorado. And Jesse Butterfield. Anti-photocarcinogenic, antidermal tattoos. Ugh, Jesus Christ. This dude, whatever. 10 Heart Study. Okay, so methodology during a trial, 10 participants. Okay, here we go. Now we're getting into the stuff here. Here's our safety data. It's 10 people were selected to receive a tattoo using Magic Ink alongside tattoos that use control ink that's commonly used in the tattoo industry. So, what ink? Where's the link to the actual paper? Do they have one? Let's see. This is from Mudgill. Oh, I know that logo. Oh, yeah. No, this is... So this, right off the hop, we're going to see the paper is not peer-reviewed. So that's fun. Yeah, this is already just silly. Let's go back here. Methodology. They gave a bunch of stuff. Participants were reserved for 7 days and surveyed. So now we have a personal reporting survey, which doesn't mean it's bad, right? But what they're doing is they're asking people questions. And then they're saying, like, how do you feel about this? Now, depending on the person's state of mind, right? If they are happy or sad, or if they're kind of a little bit crazy, then the outcome of these questions is going to be influenced by that. Now, who are the people that were in this trial? And we don't have to know their names and numbers, but would like to know conflicting interests. Now, we get into peer-reviewed stuff. They would be able to tell, like, okay, well, where do these people come from? They'd be asking questions like that. Were these people who work for you? Is this somebody who's sitting in the office who maybe is just a little bit crazy, right? Who's just like super duper fan of this? Maybe they're going to experience things that are, negative, but they're not going to say anything. So this is where we have to have repeatable trials. We have to do this at different places, and we have to use more than 10 people initially. And for 7 days, we already know there's been loads of information that came out that at 7 days, we haven't even started the full remodeling of a wound. No, right? This is just the base end of like the inflammatory process that's initiated during the origin of the tattoo. It's just starting to calm down. The body's just starting to get to a point where it can actually heal the wound that's being created. And so when you think about 7 days, I mean, that's nothing. There's people who have tattoo allergies, 30 years into the future, right? 30 freaking years. 7 days is nothing in comparison to that. This is just horrid. Anyways, the trial. The objective of the trial is to study the safety of Magic Ink across 3 endpoints. They have a response and a randomized group of volunteers who were tattooed. It's 10 people. That's just not randomized enough for me. A comparison of each subject's skin response to Magic Ink tattoo and conventional tattooing, and study the different responses. Okay, so across various skin types, ages, and genders. So, okay, we need to actually see, there should be like a graph, right? Some type of infographic here where we see, age, gender, skin type, right? So we can see, what it is. Like somebody who's, 47, the next person is, 91, the next person is 2. They shouldn't do that. That's not good. And it should go down, right? The gender, it should be mixed, right? The skin types, right? We should go skin tone. And we should see what the efficacy is going to be, right? If this is like light, mid, dark, whatever, and it should be moving through and giving us a lot of variables. That the bad thing is that how many variables can you actually test with 10 volunteers? And where was this done, right? If we have it from this place, we're either in New York City or Long Island, and it's on Fifth Avenue of all places. Ooh, my. What type of people are we going to be getting to come in and do this, right? What is their socioeconomic status? Where do they live? What's their lifestyle? All of those things are going to come into play because general health overall as well can influence how a wound heals, right? The healthier that you are, and not just like I eat vegetarian and I just like run 6 miles a day, sure, but I mean like your general overall health, not just your lifestyle, but your health. If it's better, you're going to heal better and you're going to experience, hopefully, less inflammatory stuff. But I mean, what if some of these people had an autoimmune disorder, right? What if there's something else? They should be segregated into multiple classes, right? We need more people for that. We can have even like, how does this work on like unhealthy people, right? Where's their representation? Where's people, just that they're going to cover the myriad of things here, because it's not just one type of person who gets a tattoo, it's every type. So what do they look for? Participants observed no adverse events in any of the Magic Ink or standard tattoos. Tattoos are assessed for erythema, swelling, scale crust, and tenderness. So itchiness, swelling, scale crust, and tenderness. So if you've got a tattoo that is done well by somebody who has a very light hand with, Bang Bang's crew, it's very, very common that that's going to happen because most of those tattoos end up fading away pretty quick, or he oversaturates the Jesus out of them, they blow out the fuck. What you're going to have is a lot of lifting coming out of the tattoo, and they're making sure not to, and this is where controls come in, they're making sure not to go down too deep. They're making sure to do the tattoo in a way that, like, you can influence, and anyone who does tattoos out there can influence how it's going to heal, right? If I don't like someone, let's say, and they're being mean and they're saying horrible things and stuff, when I go to do the tattoo, I can be mean and make it worse. I can be, if their skin is here, on our model, I can tattoo way the hell down deep. If they're being nice, I can try to alleviate some pain. If they're very scared, I can try to go slower. I can go lighter. I can do all this. So there's no control on how this was actually done. So it doesn't matter. This is moot, right? And it performs safely across a diverse range of skin types. Where is the data on that? Now they're just making notes. It doesn't make any sense. Notably, Magic Ink demonstrated superior performance and proved to be safer than traditional inks. How? How did you prove that? It doesn't make any sense. There's nothing, and it's just marketing. This is not good science. This is not. And Dr. Mudgill is, yeah, okay, I know you've got a whole bunch of stuff behind you, but you know what? I'm going to give this clinical study an F for fuck off. It's really poor. It doesn't work. It's not good. It doesn't show anything. There is nothing about safety in this. It's bad. What does this say? Legacy artists created tattoos. Oh, golly. Legacy artists. Handpicked by Bang Bang and trained in person to wield Magic Ink to its fullest potential. So now automatically we can see that this is a pull, right? Only the select and chosen few are gonna do this, because they're not gonna say anything if it's a shit product, and they probably are gonna get paid for it. Meet our legacy team. Oh goodness, here we go. Oh boy. Every person who has a huge following online. There we go. So it's not even about technical acumen here. It's just how well are you going to be able to push the product across social media lines. Brilliant marketing. And this is literally, I know, like, the majority of these people, they're all big follower groups, right? You got to have at least fucking 70K to be in that group. That's depressing. They're handpicked by Bang Bang. So, I mean, it's like automatically giving him that push is like, I know what's good and I know what's not. And so his word is what's going to make sure that you're safe. And I don't know if I trust that guy driving me through fucking traffic. I don't know him, but, Oh, anyways, reproducibility. So if this is the people that we're seeing in a variety of skin tones, because there was 10 people, what is this? Reproducibility. How come that one tattoo looks the same because it's next to, what the hell? Activation of 2 over 100 cycles in one day. exceptional performance, has the ability to be activated and deactivated over 10,000 times. What happens when you go in the sun? Oh my gosh. Testing the future. This is just on one person too. Look at that crazy kanji there. Anyways, sign up for a trial, external links. How are some metals? So these links that are over here are not anything that has to do with their stuff. This is just going to be a pull to say, well, this stuff isn't what we make. And this is why it's safe, is because we're not this. But they haven't shown any type of safety and efficacy stuff. So, yeah, all right. Well, that's at least the website. It's bad. I'm sorry. This does not get a stamp of approval. I give it an F. We went over some of the stuff here. Let me know what you think, comments and all that stuff. And I'm done for now. I don't want to do this anymore. This is the best.